Hello everyone, this is Charisse of the 18th Secretariat team speaking on behalf of the Health Informatics Society of Sri Lanka. This webinar is about the rapid advances of genome sequencing technologies, bioinformatics, and computational biology heralding in an era of genomic medicine. This series of lectures is conducted by the Global Genomic Medicine Collaborative supported by the Health Informatics Society of Sri Lanka and the Asia eHealth Information Network. It will showcase some of the pioneering initiatives in genomic medicine from around the globe. This series would be co-hosted by Professor Bruce Poore from the University of Alabama in Birmingham, USA, and Professor Vajra Disanayake from the University of Colombo, the co-chairs of the Education Working Group of G2MC. Before we start our webinar, here are a few reminders. Our webinars are recorded via WebEx and will be made accessible online after the session. We're now using Cisco WebEx Event Center. If you're having trouble joining, log out of the session and rejoin through the link sent to you earlier by WebEx or by entering the meeting room number 864-955-067. Password is HISSL123. May we remind attendees that your mics are muted throughout the meeting, but you can chat your thoughts to us through the chat tab. And for questions, please type them in the Q&A tab. May we now call on Professor Bruce?
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us to this G2MC Global Genomic Medicine Grand Rounds. Today, it's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Professor Nicholas Hawkins. Professor Hawkins is a pathologist by training and serves as the Professor of Innovative Technology in Medical Education at the University of Queensland, Brisbane, Australia. He's a cancer researcher and an anatomic pathologist, but also has a special interest in medical education. The context for today's talk is his experience with the BEST network, which is a online system for medical education. And he'll be telling us in some detail about that network and how it works. And with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Professor Hawkins.
Okay, so well, thank you very much, Bruce, and thank you, Vajra, for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk right across the world about the BEST network and how I think it may be of use to the G2MC consortium as well. So in my talk today, I wanted to highlight, I guess, three things. The first one, to tell you a little bit about the BEST network as a model of collaborative activity for academics to work together to further medical education. I wanted to talk specifically about some of the tools and content that are available through the BEST network that we use to further biomedical education in the broader sense. And finally, I wanted to highlight, I guess, how the BEST network might be used in particular by G2MC and all those interested in genomic education around the world. So this screen here is what you'll see if you go to the BEST network site, which is at that URL, www.best.edu.au. And BEST stands for Biomedical Education Skills and Training. So the BEST network was established in 2012 through a grant from the Australian government, and that grant lasted for 2 years. And since that time, we've been able to, since 2014, it's been a fully self-funding enterprise where we provide services to academic institutions at a fee and use that to support the broader activities of the network. So when we started, excuse me, when we started the network in 2012, we had a pretty clear mission, and that was to improve biomedical education, not just in Australia, but all around the world, really, as much as we could do that by supporting the collaborative sharing of educational knowledge and resources. So we really wanted to create a place on the internet where academics could share resources and practice and teaching practices, the pedagogy of teaching, in order to improve biomedicine right across the board. So in a sense, then, the best network is really about what I would call academic crowdsourcing. We're there to allow academics to share the educational materials that they develop and the clever ideas they have about education in a way that allows them to directly benefit their colleagues. You know, it's a funny thing that academics are quite used to collaborating in research, and they'll happily collaborate right around the world and share ideas through journals and often sign away intellectual property when they give their journal research findings to publishers. But when it comes to sharing their teaching materials, they tend to be a lot less willing to do so. And really the best network's about trying to find ways that allows academics to share the teaching materials they develop so that everyone can benefit from it. So it sounds like a simple idea. It's harder to achieve in practice because there are quite a few hurdles, as I'm sort of suggesting, for academics to get them to share and to collaborate in the sphere of teaching. And so a few lessons we learned along the way about how you have to form your network are relevant to that. We realized early on, for instance, that that academics are very generally, and it may not be the case in all countries, but generally fairly wary of giving their ideas to commercial providers or having their ideas and content used in commercial settings. It's probably true to say that a small percentage of academics are quite used to doing that through the publishing industry, but here we're trying to provide a model that bypasses the publisher's business model and allows academics to share directly between each other. And so it was pretty clear that this space that we were creating had to be non-commercial. So the best network is a not-for-profit exercise. I'm the director of the best network. I don't get paid by the best network. No one in the best network gets paid. Any money we make goes back into further developing the network and building content and resources. The second point is that it was clear also academics worry a lot when it comes to sharing information and their teaching materials. They worry about the intellectual property rights that they have. They see that teaching material often as their tools of trade, and they're very wary of giving that to other people and having that material used in ways that they weren't planning to do. So we have, over the first 2 years of the network, set up a pretty clear legal framework which really does support the sharing of materials. Everything that happens within the BEST network is done under license, and so everything that people contribute to the network remains theirs. It remains their intellectual property, but they share it in a legal framework which gives them control over how it's used subsequently and respects their rights as the owner of that property, but also facilitates sharing. The other key important thing, or one of the other key important things about the network, is that it has to be in a platform that's reliable. Last thing academics like is to be teaching in a class, for instance, in a live setting, and finding that the technological tools that they're using have failed. And so we've deliberately set up a platform which runs off, it actually runs off Amazon servers, and which are sort of, the state of the art worldwide. Very reliable. Doesn't mean it always works, but 99.9% of the time it does. And more than just reliable, it has to be accessible and available to everyone. And so it's clear that it had to be web-based. It had to be based on servers that can be shared and mirrored right around the world as needed. And the final point about helping academics and encouraging academics to share and collaborate is that it really has to be an academic enterprise. And any suggestion that what's being done is done by external partners, by commercial interests, etc., is very damaging to that process of sharing and collaboration. And so we're very clear from the outset that the BEST network is about it's by academics and for academics. So this is this diagram shows the business model, as it were, of the BEST network, just so that you understand how it works. Here we are in the centre. We get our money. The money that we need to run the network comes from institutional members. And there's probably about 10 of those or so who pay, as large universities, they pay a reasonable amount of money as members' fees, which comes to the network. A lot of we are in the network, we're just academics. We don't run IT. We don't develop platforms. We're not IT people. And so we outsource all of our IT operations to our technology partner, which is a company called Smart Sparrow. They're a tech startup in Australia. They started probably about 8 years ago in Australia and now are in the United States, and they're one of the leading providers of adaptive e-learning platforms worldwide. So we provide money for them to run the network and make it work at all times. We also license from them their particular technology of the adaptive e-learning platform. And that leaves us with some money left over, which we can then put back into the network. So the founding members of the network, which is a consortium of universities in Australia, has the responsibility for managing the network, for developing strategy, and for determining the nature of teaching that happens on that network. Whereas our partners, they develop the tools that we want as we ask for them, and they operate the network, they support the network, and they provide training for our members. So in the 4 years to date, we've made some pretty good progress. We have, here's a few numbers about the BEST network. We have about 19,000 medical images in a medical image database that I'll show you later on, called Slice. And that includes about 3,000 whole slide images, so virtual microscopy images that are available through the web. The Slice tool that accesses these images also allows annotations, and we have a rapidly increasing number of annotations that people have made on those images to provide, whether it's teachers adding their intellectual knowledge about those images in a way that's transferable to other people, or maybe it's students who are asking questions or answering questions by using the annotations on slides. We have quite a lot of students, and that number is also growing fairly rapidly. Students, whenever we sign up an institution, all the students in that institution have free access to the BEST network. There are about 1,900 academics worldwide who use the network, and a bit later on I'll talk about the specific lessons that are available publicly through the BEST network for any of our members to use. I should have pointed out right at the start on that front page to the BEST network, there's a little green button that says join. And while we charge institutions for the benefit for having the resources of the network available to their staff and students, actually membership by individual academics is free. And so I'd encourage anyone who's listening to just click the green button on the BEST website and join up, and within about 24 hours or so, we just check that you're a bona fide academic, and then you'll have become a member of the network, and you'll have free access to all the resources of the network. So these are the key institutions at the moment who are signed up. The top row here is the founding institutions in Australia who started out with the original grant, including University of Queensland, where I am, the University of New South Wales, where I was, Melbourne, which is, I guess, the preeminent university in Australia, and James Cook, a university in northern Queensland. We have some other universities have joined since, Sydney University, Macquarie University in Sydney, some institutions in the United States, and I was talking to Vajira before about we're always looking to engage more with institutions in America. And we're quite active in that area, talking to a lot of people, trying to demonstrate the benefits of the network. So this, just to give you a sense, 2015 this was, I'm sure the numbers are significantly higher since then, but you can see two things from this. Firstly, that BEST is at the moment predominantly an Australian phenomenon. This is a list of academic members, most of them based in Australia, small numbers in India and South Africa. We spend a lot of time in the United States encouraging membership, and there's a few there. But I think also what this really highlights is that you can see that people from all over the world can be members of the BEST network. It is free to individual academics. They can sign up, they can use the resources, they can teach their students on a small scale for nothing. It's only when large institutions start to using it in significant ways to teach large numbers of students that we really want people to pay for that, because obviously nothing is free. So this is the front page of the BEST network, and again at the website. And there's three elements here that I'd just like to discuss in turn, which is really the tools and materials that are available to you as a member of the BEST network. So the first thing to consider is Courseware Catalogue, and this is a collection of lessons that have been made using the adaptive e-learning platform, and I'll show you a few of those, that have been made by members and also then provided back to the network so that they are publicly accessible through this interface here. There's a lot more lessons that people make that they don't make publicly available, but really the point of the network is that if you do make something and it's of value, then we always want you to return it to the network so that others can use it. So this is, if you clicked on that Courseware Catalogue button, this is what you'd see. It's a series of lessons that are being developed by a range of people, as you can see, in fairly different areas. There's a lot of anatomy, a lot of pathology involved here, some nursing, etc. These are searchable in various ways. The important point about these is they're authored and used by academics, but these have all been shared within the BEST community. And once they're here, they can be adapted and reused from the original by other academics. I'll just click here, and I'm not sure where this will open up. Here it is. So I just clicked there, and I've just opened up. This is a live site now. This is best.edu.au, and I realise that it may be hard to read some of these things. There's the green join in button. So this is one particular course that's been written by a woman in the University of Melbourne, and it's now, I can do a couple of things with this. If I click on the preview button, I can view that and look at the lesson and see what it's like. It's sort of described here. Or also I can use this teach with this button. And this is important because what that means is I can, if I click on this, in fact I will click on that, it just means I have to log on, excuse me. When I click on that, what happens is that lesson, let's do that again, has been taken from the supply of lessons on the BEST network and moved to my workspace. So even though I'm just sitting here at my desk, I have a workspace that's available in the cloud for me, and here I am at my workspace now, and that's a lesson that I've just pulled across from that lady there, and I can now open that lesson. I could preview it, but I could also adapt it. So I'll just let the lesson open up, and you can see here, for instance, there's a little icon there that might be, I might want that icon, and I could put in an image, and I just happen to save one. Here we are. I could put that image up there now. And so when I run this lesson, and maybe I make this available to my students, it looks like it's come from me. Now you might think, well, that's not very good, that's sort of cheating, but the whole point of the process here at the BEST network is that it allows you, the person who put that there originally from the University of Melbourne is very happy for you to take this lesson, to rebadge it, to remove questions, to change questions, to make it slightly different, to suit your context, And that's really the point of the best network. Let's get rid of that. So all of these things in the catalogue are really sort of templates which other people can use to make new lessons from. And it's really quite a common practice that we do that. The second tool that we have here is a tool called Slice, which I alluded to before. Sorry, I should have explained a little bit more. When you go to that workplace, that is an adaptive e-learning platform, and that allows you to author any sort of lesson you like. It's a very rich authoring environment. You can either take something that's already been developed and change it, or you can just de novo create a new lesson entirely. And once you create that lesson in your workspace, you can then make it available to your students or your colleagues or whatever in a live form, so that they can see what that lesson's like. They can actually do that lesson in real time over the internet, wherever they are in the world. The second tool, apart from the adaptive e-learning platform, the second tool is Slice. And Slice is, as I mentioned before, an image bank. I'll just click on this screen here, which is the sort of the Slice log on. It's just in the PowerPoint, but when I click on it, it will go to the live site. Here we are, it's just popping up. So we're now live in Slice on the Best Network site. And what Slice is as I said, a collection of many, many images, over nearly 20,000. I was just today, and I thought I might do this. I was talking to my students today in a class about amoebiasis, and just to give you an example, so I've just put in search for amoebiasis there, and you can see there's lots and lots of images here. Some of them are just fixed images. Some of them, I'm just trying to find, well, I can search for different types. I can search, for instance, only for microscopic images. That's what I'm after. And when you find an image that you want, you can open it up. And so I'm now opening up this image here. And this is a virtual microscopic image. So in real time, and this is really very quick wherever you are, I can zoom in and out. So I'm actually looking at a section of the large bowel, and there's a muscle, and there's a lot of this mucosa. It's very damaged. And as we zoom in, we can start to see why it's damaged, and that is because there's lots of intermedia here. In fact, there's a nice one there. And so it replaces the need in medical schools or nursing schools, wherever, of having microscopic microscopes or servers or third-party providers to provide microscopy. It's a virtual microscopy system itself. But probably what's most important about this is you can see you can create what's called a layer. I'll make another layer here. And a layer is simply like a piece of glad wrap or a tracing paper that's put over the top of that image. And now on that layer, I can add any annotations that I want to that layer. I could, for instance, put a pin in that thing there and say it's, I say what it is, and I might say, that it contains red cells. And having annotated that image, so what I've really done is I've added my knowledge as a pathologist about what's happening in this section, or one tiny bit of knowledge about it, to that slide. And so that image now is annotated with that bit of information. But it's on a layer, and what's really important about Slice is that that layer is captured in this URL at the top of the browser here. So you might notice as I zoom in and around this number, the numbers at the top change, and that's because that URL reflects the pan, the zoom, and any labels that happen to be present on that slide. So if I copy that URL, copy, Control-C, whatever, copy that URL, I can paste that URL anywhere. I could send it in an email, I could attach it to an image in a PowerPoint presentation. Wherever it was, when that's clicked on, this browser, the browser that the person has will open up, Slice will open up, that image will open up at that pan and zoom, showing that annotation that I put there, or any number of annotations that are available on the slide. So it's a very important way of capturing information and sharing information about images, more than just, oh, this is an image, but here's an image and here's why it's important for you to know about it. And so Slice is a really important part of the BEST network, and obviously the images work together with the adaptive e-learning platform to allow they can be used within the platform to add value to the lessons that we have. I'll just get rid of that again. So we're back to the PowerPoint presentation. So the third element of the BEST network that's important and is what we're calling disciplinary loops. And it's really the idea, and I'll just go to that loop here, that next slide there. It's what you'd see if you clicked on disciplinary loops. It's the idea that in this big network, there's lots of little lessons and lots of slides, and they mean different things to different people. And we'd like to have a way where people can get together in disciplines or in informal groups to share information between each other, which they don't necessarily want to share with everyone else. So these are some public loops, but you can have private loops as well. And if you click on one of these loops, we're just going to the live site again now. If I click on that as a live site, you can see that this pathology loop has 22 members. There they all are, various people around the place. I seem to appear there a couple of times, I notice. It has lessons in it, so various lessons from the shared area around pathology are listed here. And it also, at the moment it doesn't, but coming soon, as that says, layers, so images that have been annotated and serve useful functions can be shared with each other. So loops are an important way that people can work together, certainly to develop lessons, and more generally, when you're developing a lesson in this platform in your workspace, you can choose to share that with any other member of the network so that they can work together with you in developing that lesson. You don't have to share files or worry about files. They're all in the cloud, but we have the tools that allow people to collaboratively work together to develop lessons. Okay, so let's get rid of that. So that's the idea of disciplinary loops, and it's one example of how we want to get the BEST network to be able to share, to allow people to collaborate more effectively. Okay, so now just in the last few minutes of my talk here, I wanted to show you, I guess, a more specific example of how this might work for you guys. I'll just see if I can. Let's stop that working. I'll just come back here and I'll show you. So what I've done now is I've gone to the SmartSparrow, the adaptive e-learning platform of SmartSparrow, and what I'm going to do is I've made a little. Previously, I've only made a couple of lessons that really relate to genetics in any meaningful way, but I thought I'd show them to you, give you a sense of what's achievable, or there's almost anything's achievable, but what I've achieved on the platform in that area, and also show you how these things work in real life. So if I, maybe I'll just jump back to the PowerPoint. The last slide in my PowerPoint just has a few links. There's the BEST link, the Slice link, which you can also get to from BEST. But there are two URLs here. You might have to, they're not hyperlinks, so you have to type them in, but they will take you to publicly available versions of 2 lessons that I've made and that I'll show you. So if you follow those links, you'll see a publicly available lesson, and you would do them as if you're a student. But I wanted to show you, I can find it. I wanted to show you what they look like when you create them, and then when you create them within the workspace. So the first one, this one here, I've called it Cancer Genetics for G2MC, and this is the workspace. But if I open up the workspace with that lesson, you'll see what it looks like. And if I go to preview, which I can't get to because the speaking Nick Hawkins is in the way, that's a problem. To make this a bit smaller. So if I go to preview mode, you can see this is what the lesson would look like if you actually ran it. Let's get rid of that. So it's a little lesson. It's about changes in cancer. There's some information there about colon cancer and cells, and it prompts the students to think about oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes. And it sets up a simple little model. So the students are asked, for instance, to think about oncogenes and how they get activated, and prompts them to think about, well, you've got two alleles. What would happen to an oncogene that would make it activated? And they can choose various genetic changes that might occur on either allele and in combination, and figure out what's happening. If they're not sure, there's little pop-ups that you can have which show information. I know you can't read that, but it's just some information about various terminology that's being used on that slide. So the student might say, well, I think an oncogene is going to be wild type at both alleles. And then when they try that out, they get told, no, that would be normal, try again. So they might think, well, it's going to be a mutation on both alleles. And when they try that, they get told, well, that's possible, but that would be, unusual because you only need one allele, etc. So so I've created this lesson to provide that sort of feedback, and that sort of intellectual exercise of thinking about the changes that occur in different situations. So I'm just going to jump through here very quickly to show you. So the students go on and they think about tumor suppressor genes, and again, the same sort of idea. They might have dropped to it now that really tumor suppressor gene, well, actually, it's going to have two changes occurring, and yes, they're right, that's great. They might have some extra information about tumor suppressor genes that's told to them. I'm just going to go on to the next section. And here we get to the idea, probably as close as it gets to where you guys might be interested. Here we're talking, we've taken that from the individual cell and oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes, and we've applied it to a family and a hereditary cancer syndrome and a young girl, and they're told that this girl and her family have Lynch syndrome because of a point mutation in MSH2 gene. Again, sort of information about what some of those things are if the students aren't clear. And then here we're asking them to build on their knowledge they had before about oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes by asking them basically, what would a lymphocyte, if you took DNA from lymphocytes from blood in that girl, Emily, what would they look like? And if they think that there's going to be a problem with the oncogene, then they'll be told, no, that's not a very good answer, it's very unlikely, and eventually they will figure out that it's probably one allele affected with the tumor suppressor gene, and they'll be told that's right, etc. So, and on it goes. So that's a little lesson, and the way it's been authored in this platform is it's like down here we have all the slides that we just saw. They're written as sort of like PowerPoint slides, and you write them, you design them, you can change things around, move pictures, etc. But what's the important part is when you have a little multiple choice question, you set up a series of what's called trap states. In other words, you can program what happens when a student chooses each one of these. And you can build fairly elaborate lessons, much more elaborate than this one, that allow students to figure things out. Now, that lesson there, I can't show you details of, but that lesson there I've put previously to medical students here, and if I can find it, because I want to show you that once you make those lessons, here we are, in the platform. So I made that lesson and I made it available to my students here at the University of Queensland, and here is, once you do that, then the platform gives you back analytics about what the students have done. So you can see, for instance, that students have been doing it, they haven't really been completing it as much as they should. You can see when they did it, and this is when I told them to do it back here. But you can also, there's quite powerful analytics in this platform. So you can see all the questions I asked, and you can see, for instance, how long the students spent on each question. And if we look down there, we might see it's this one here that they've spent most time on, that question. And that was one of the questions about hereditary cancer and that young girl. So they actually spent a lot of time thinking about that question and exploring the different answers that were available. And this little tracing here tells you, for instance, that when the students first attempted that question, they actually chose all sorts of different possibilities. Very few of them got it right the first time. And then it shows you from the 32 students, for instance, who said that APC was correct here, then what happened to those students and how many of them ended up eventually getting it right up the top here. So it's a bit complicated, this flow diagram here, but it's a way of seeing how the students are going and how they're progressing and the common errors that they're making. And it's a very valuable way of identifying how you can improve the lesson or improve your teaching, better target your teaching, so that you can address their issues. So lots of feedback and lots of analytics on the lessons when you put them out there. And finally, as I said, any one of these lessons, you can take them, you can change them, you can adapt them, and you can reapply them to your own students at any time. So I think I'll stop there. I think that's enough. I've tried to give you an idea of what the best network is, what our goals are, how we're really about trying to help academics help each other in education. And I've tried to show you some of the key tools that we have through the adaptive e-learning platform, which we license from Smart Sparrow, through the Slice tool that we've developed as ways of better teaching students. And I think at that point, I'd be very happy to take any questions that anyone has.
Thank you for that lecture, Dr. Nick. Maybe now get the questions from the attendees. While waiting for the questions, are there any reactions from our panelists? Dr. Brew?
Hi, this is Bruce Corp. Nick, thank you very much. That was really great. And I guess everybody can address a question by typing it in the QA box, I believe. But let me start with maybe a couple of questions. One is, I think one of the challenges that one runs into when sharing lesson material like this, aside from the reluctance that you mentioned earlier, is the degree to which images and other materials are truly the intellectual property of the individuals who are creating it. So I think it's probably true that a lot of people pull pictures off the internet and other places, or maybe even have photos of patients, and they may not have gone through the same level of formal copyright clearance that one would if one were actually publishing this, say, in a book. And I wonder if you run into issues when people share material and it turns out that it actually isn't appropriately cleared in terms of copyright or in terms of patient privacy.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point, Bruce. And so all the images, those 20,000 images, every one of them, the contributor has signed. I talked about the legal framework. So the contributor has signed what we call a deposit agreement, and that deposit agreement is effectively a license for the best network to use that, and for the members of the best network to use any of those images for educational purposes worldwide. In signing that deposit agreement, they have to acknowledge that they A, own the copyright, or their institution owns the copyright to that image, and B, that there is no identifiable no way to identify any individuals involved. We don't actually have we can't have any clinical images for that reason, that really any clinical image, any image that's identifiable, we say that you need to have, ethical, you have to have consent for the use of that image for those purposes, which is educational purposes worldwide. And really that's very uncommon for people to have got consent for those sorts of identifiable images. So we do have a large number of images. Any image on the best network, you are freely available to take and use any of those whole slide images because they have been deposited under an appropriate ethical and legal framework. And I think I agree, it's a real problem. People take images from all over the place. I often see images that I know we've contributed to the internet are reappearing in other places. But part of the best network deal is that if you use those images from the best network, then you are, you need to acknowledge their origin.
Thank you. So I'm not seeing any other questions. Let me ask another. Is there any kind of curation that you do when somebody produces a lesson plan? Is it reviewed by anybody? Do you give feedback to the person that submitted it? Do they make changes based on that kind of?
So, well, that's another very good point. And it's often asked. I think, well, we do to some extent, for sure. But really the idea of the best network is not to be restrictive. And so if a person wants to create a lesson and it looks reasonable, we're very happy to put it up. In the idea that, okay, it's undoubtedly got problems, and I've never met an academic yet who's looked at a lesson and said that's perfect. It's good, but this, that. So rather than we're not purporting to be gold standard lesson material. What we're saying is this is something that someone genuinely is using. You can edit it, change it, and if you make it better, fine, just tell us and we'll put it back in there. Tell that original person you've improved their lesson and they can use your one. So we do have, we can endorse things, etc., but it's not really, we're not trying to be prescriptive or exclusive about what we do. Lessons mean different things for different people, different audiences have different needs, and we try to avoid, apart from obvious errors, and we're pretty liberal with what we allow people to put in there.
Thanks. Not still seeing any other questions. One other that occurred to me is just wonder if you can comment a bit on what is involved in actually creating a lesson. You've shown us the course catalog and the image catalog and so forth, but let's suppose you wanted to create a lesson on some topic, like in genomic medicine, say. Is there a kind of sandbox where you can create a lesson and load it with the various elements?
Yeah, so that workspace that I was showing you, so once you log in and you're a member, then you can go, you have a workspace and you can create whatever lessons you like there. They're entirely your property until such time as you choose to either share them with one of your other members in the network so they can come and help you, or you publish them or you activate them, so you make them available somewhere else. So it could be you can take a lesson and publish it publicly, which is what I did with a couple of those lessons in the last PowerPoint slide of the PowerPoint. You can follow those URLs. They're publicly deployed lessons, And anyone at that point, anyone in the world who knows that URL will click on it and be able to do it. But you don't have to do that. You can keep them private. You can develop them yourself. You can share them with colleagues until such time as you're ready to, make them available to your audience, whoever that might be. And you certainly don't have to bring them back to the best network. You don't have to give them back to this sort of Courseware Catalogue. You can just keep them for your own benefit and share them with whoever else you want.
And can you create or borrow from others exam questions from the network?
Only insofar as you can take. So it's not like an exam item bank. You can take lessons which have questions on them, and you can just pull out one page out of a lesson if it doesn't have an MCQ you like. And put that into another lesson. You can take individual elements from any lesson and put them into another with sort of copy and paste within your workspace. But it's not. I wouldn't. It's not a exam item bank as you would see. It's not designed in that way. It's really, the platform is really about the lesson itself rather than the individual elements within the lesson.
Right. So the conceptual model is that of lessons rather than courses, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly right. So there's it's not about courses. Slice is about individual sort of elements. Just an image and its annotations. But a lesson is usually a series of slides or screens put together that have some purpose. At the moment, there are some rudimentary tools around joining lessons together into courses, but it's not well adapted. What usually happens in educational institutions is they have their own learning management system like Blackboard or Moodle or something like that. And when you create a lesson in BEST, you can deploy it to one of those learning management systems. So you link it in there, and then when the students do it, they just log on to their learning management system. They do it in there. The marks from it go straight to the sort of the grade center within that learning management system. So we're really about building individual lessons, and how they're used and the context they're used is sort of up to others to put together.
Well, one final question from me is, I'm just wondering if you have a kind of a vision for the future of this. Where do you see it going?
Oh, yeah, well, I do have a vision, I guess. I think I'm particularly, I'm a pathologist. I love images, and I love being able to use images and put them into educational contexts. I use this tool all the time in different ways. I make tiny little lessons that I use in class. I make sort of, you have a practical, and you'd have a prac manual, where you can create sort of online practical manuals that add value to it. I guess the bigger vision, I think, is to engage students in this. When an institution signs up to the BEST network, all their students actually get access to the platform as well. I mean, one of the rate-limiting steps is that academics are not very good at building lessons because it's just not what they're used to. But students usually are much better, much quicker at it, and I can see the situation where people would really, once you get a critical mass, there'll be a lot of people generating lessons, refining lessons, adapting lessons, and sharing those lessons. And so I guess, it's the ultimate vision. I mean, it's very hard to know where the future will land because things change so fast. But I think the model of the textbook and an academic, writing a textbook is rapidly disappearing, and I can see a future where this tool or other tools allow academics to really create, share, build on each other's work in a much more productive way.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say there is a question here from Ed Miller. I wonder if I could just quickly respond to that.
Please. Yeah, I'm not seeing it, but go ahead.
He said, hi, if you as an academic add a resource, can you see who used it or adapted it and what educational context it was used? And it's a really important question. And the short answer is, at the moment, it's not easy, but this thing that the system, everything that's created in the system is known to the system. So the system actually knows when I created a lesson de novo. It knows when I took a lesson and changed it. We have an informal way of saying, well, if I take a lesson, you should, recognize the person who originally contributed it. You should make some statement about how you've changed it. But I think one of the goals of the network is that we will be able to tap into that information that's actually in the network. And so the vision would be there that someone who's created a network lesson, which has been taken up by others and adapted by others, should be able to print out basically a family tree of their lesson that says where it started, who adapted it, how it was deployed, how many students have actually used it, in which countries. And so, that's technically achievable, and that's really where we'd like to be, because I think it's then that you start to get, an academic could say, going to promotion, instead of saying my students think I'm great, they can say, I've created this thing. It's now used in various forms in 15 countries by 10,000 students this year. And alternatively, they can also see where their lesson has become very popular all of a sudden, and they probably need to track down that new popular version because it's probably better than their original one, and get that back and use that. So I think it's a really important question. We can't actually tell at the moment. We know, but we can't show the academic how their lessons are being used. But it's critical to the long term of this sort of network that people can see that and get value out of doing that.
Now, you may be seeing questions that I don't see because I didn't see that one. Are there other questions?
No, that was all, I think.
Okay, one other thing.
Hi, Mrs.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Hello. There's a question from Dr. Terry. It says, have you considered making connections with the G2C2 resource supported by NHGRI?
No, I don't know that resource, but I'm always happy to make contact with people. So if you can send me that details, I'm very happy to pursue that. The best network is not, you don't create something that no one else has thought of or had ideas around. I think there are some certain elements here that make it distinctive, but we can certainly learn from others, and there are a whole range of different niches in which these products can sit and work. So I'd be very happy to follow that up.
Well, again, I can't see the questions, so I can't tell if there are additional ones.
There are no additional ones, Dr. Bruce.
Okay.
So if there are no more questions, maybe ask for the last words of the speaker and the panelists.
Well, my last words are, well, thank you for the opportunity to present this, and please have a look at the links, and please feel free to join the network at any time, and that will give you access to all these tools to make sense of. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, Nick, thank you very much. This really looks like a extremely valuable resource, and one that I certainly only knew a little bit about from previous conversations, but this tour gives me a much better sense of how it's used. And I think one of the questions that we'll be asking is whether the G2MC education group might experiment a little bit with this. And we do have a few cases that we might be able to adapt to put on the platform and get a feeling for how this is received. So really appreciate your taking the time, and thanks to all who have participated. This is recorded, I believe, so will be available online in addition to those that were here live. So I will conclude at this point, but again, thanks very much.
Thank you.